Hello. Hey there. I made a video telling you how to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit and Fahrenheit to Celsius, but there's one other temperature scale which is often used, and that is Kelvin. Now, Lord Kelvin was a brilliant young man and a, frankly, rather not brilliant old man as a scientist, but he realized something. He realized that if you had a gas, as it got colder, the pressure got lower. And he said, well, what happens when you get to zero? You keep getting colder, what happens when pressure gets zero? Is that the coldest you can get? And the answer was yes. That is what we call absolute zero. Absolute zero is when there's no thermal energy. The particles simply come to a stop. There is no kinetic energy of particles in any substance when it's at absolute zero. So that became the basis of a type of temperature we call Kelvin. The Kelvin scale is made up of increments that are exactly the same size as the Celsius scale, but instead of having zero at freezing, like Celsius has, the zero is at absolute zero. So the question is, how would you convert between one and the other? Well, it's actually very easy. In fact, it's one of the easiest things there is to do, because if you start out with the temperatures in Celsius, all you have to do is add 273.15, because absolute zero is 273 degrees below freezing, below Celsius is zero. And since a degree Celsius is exactly the same size as a degree Kelvin, you don't have to deal with this 1.8 stuff, which you have to do going from Fahrenheit to Celsius, because a Fahrenheit degree is smaller than a Celsius degree. So it's a very simple formula. So that will equal the temperature in Kelvin. So for example, when I got in my car this morning, it said 9 degrees Celsius, which is a little under 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, my car is in Celsius. Believe me, I'd have switched everything over to metric if it weren't for the fact that all these speed limit signs are in miles per hour. So 9 plus 273.15 is equal to the temperature Kelvin. And 9 plus 273 is not a very difficult math problem. You get 281 degrees. Now, by the way, I'm just going to leave this part off, because unless your thermometer is accurate to a tenth or a hundredth of a degree, there's no point putting that in. So I just leave that off. 281 degrees Kelvin. That was the temperature outside when I got in my car. Doesn't sound so cold now, does it? No, it doesn't. Now, going back is just as simple. Just like with Fahrenheit, when you go from Fahrenheit to Celsius, you do one thing. When you go from Celsius to Fahrenheit, you just do it in the exact opposite order. Well, there's only one step. So doing it in the backwards order is a piece of cake. So temperature Kelvin minus 273.15. And again, you know what? Forget the 0.15. Your thermometer probably isn't accurate enough to have to deal with that. Equals the temperature Celsius. So, take something. Lead. Lead has a melting point of 600 degrees Kelvin. You subtract 273, and that's going to give you the temperature in Celsius at which lead melts. You do that, you get 327 degrees Celsius is the melting point of lead. It's one of the reasons why lead was used so much in the early days for piping, because if you wanted to patch a pipe or fit them together, you didn't have to get them super hot. But anyway, there's the melting point of lead. It's in Kelvin. Just subtract 273, and you get 327. Now, by the way, how do you remember which way to subtract, which way to add? Remember, no matter what, whether you're above freezing or below freezing, your temperature Kelvin is always going to be bigger than your temperature Celsius. So if you're going to Kelvin and you end up with a smaller number, you've done it wrong. If you end up with a negative number, you've definitely done it wrong. There is no negative Kelvin, because 0 Kelvin is as cold as you can get. You can't get colder. And the same thing goes if you're going from Kelvin to Celsius and you get a bigger number, well, you know you've done it wrong. You're going to always, whatever the number is in Celsius is always going to be smaller than the number in Kelvin. So I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you have a nice day. Bye-bye.